pode ser quando fazer vídeo ajustar.
Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Matheus, or just Matt. I've been a developer at Kleros for around 2.5 years. And this year I've been mostly working on proof of humanity. And today I want to talk about freedom of speech and curation. So just for a quick start, so I know how to pace the talk, raise your hand if you know what Kleros is. Okay, good. Keep your hand up if you know what curate is. Okay, so it's a bit split, it's no problem. So to start, we're going to start by talking about actual conspiracy theories. Those that have like you think there's like, if someone told you as, oh, this is probably a lie, and then it actually happens. And we're going to do a little quick time travel to see how things have been in the past 4 to 5 years. So starting off in 2014, we had this dump of information that maybe we do not remember anymore. But Facebook was actually using its feed to try to manipulate users' emotions. So they were trying to make their users happier or sad depending on what they would show on your feed. So this is quite dystopian. And if they can do that, imagine what they can do to influence you on how you vote, for example. Then moving on to 2018, we had like this year of internet lynching and PR weaponization. People discovered how to use social media to promote agendas. And we have like some guy, I'm not so sure who Robert Spencer is, but I know that he's like a political commentator. And MasterCard blacklisted him. And Patreon also did the same, so he got kicked out of everything and lost his revenue. And the justification that MasterCard gave is that he was posting illegal content, but there was no actual, like, they did not point at what was the illegal content. So MasterCard was the judge here, and there was no due process, you know. And then there was 2018, some YouTuber also had the same thing. First, YouTube demonetized his channel, and then Patreon kicked him out. And so we have this situation, and also like if you know who Amin Soleimani is, you probably saw him talking about how PayPal also demonetizes sex workers. So all of these companies are doing this to some extent of censorship and control. And Sam Harris actually ended up quitting Patreon. This is an activist and political commentator, kind of, but an intellectual, and he dropped out of Patreon at the time because he thought that there was some bias and justifications were not good. And then on this year we have like Twitter entering the chat. Of course, we had the craziness of the US elections that the world saw, and Twitter started stamping tweets with claims that can be disputed. So the intentions are good, and I actually like that Twitter is trying to do this. But the problem is with stuff like this, you know, Twitter is being the judge, and they are like the experts, and they decide when to stamp, when not to stamp. So it's not great. And then just like a few weeks ago, the Biden administration was saying that Facebook would start removing posts that it regarded as problematic. So this is a point where I actually, like, I really understand what is the problem, because according to the press, around 60% of the like anti-vax posts on with information that was not correct was coming from there. But I think it's a really big problem when the government starts having these sort of promiscuous relationships with huge corporations like Facebook, and then they get to decide what stays and what leaves the platform. Now, so this is very controversial in the Western world. When we have like at the NSA, we have Google surveilling and collecting information without users' consent. But still here, it's controversial. So when this stuff goes to the media, people get very mad, and they go to the justice system and they try to talk to their Congress people. But it can get a lot worse. So for example, this presentation, if we want to censor it from like 1.5 billion people, you just have to put a big picture like this one. So I presume I don't have to explain what this is. But yeah, China has been great at censoring stuff from their citizens. And I recommend that you go to this repository to see some actual conspiracy theory stuff. So they have this social media and app where like everything happens called Weibo, and candles became a symbol of a protest with about the Tiananmen massacre. So Weibo actually removed the emoji of candles, so people would not use it. And there was some even weird stuff like removing the numbers 1989, if I'm correct, of the year, which was the year that the massacre happened. And then people started using equations that would result in the year, so they banned those equations as well. So it's quite crazy. And people start to get creative, like they put the years for each calendar, like and AK-47 picture in front of the Tiananmen Square. So yeah, 1984 was not supposed to be a manual, but it looks like we're heading that way very fast, and faster than people can understand what is happening. Even in countries which are sort of underdeveloped, and you would think that, okay, maybe they're too dumb for this and they're not going to surveil people, it's actually arriving, and it's even worse because people do not get mad about it. So, wrapping up this beginning of the talk, there is censorship. We need to build open source tools to make social media that does not try to mess with your emotions, that does not try to manipulate you. And Web3 does have a promise for it, but we cannot just let it run amok, like run crazy. We need to curate it. Otherwise, it's just going to be like a flood of like Nazi stuff and assassination stuff. We have to curate. We have to create content and users. So how do we fix this? Social media can learn your political opinions, your insecurities, your technical skills, which is weird also. They can learn who you love, who you interact with. They can learn your habits, where you go. You're carrying your 1984 television in your phone wherever you go. And becomes able to predict your actions, how you're going to vote, how you're going to think, to manipulate how you vote. They can kind of guess what you think about a certain subject based on your history. And what you probably like, comment, and share. So they can build like the weird social scores that you would see in Black Mirror or on Beijing. And finally, they can curate your presence. They can curate what you post. They can curate the influence that you have over your peers, your followers, and pretty much everything. If you have like some opinion that might be problematic, it might get removed. Or just never published, like the shadow banning, where people don't even know, and you don't know that you've been banned from a platform. And this is where the problem gets even worse, because social media and mainstream media have merged. If you go to Twitter and you follow like some influencers or TikTok influencers, they are actually behaving a little bit like newspapers. In fact, brands hire them just like they used to hire newspapers and the TV channels to make ads. So the Fourth Paw has become a lot stronger. So there's Montesquieu crying. His tripartition of power is gone. And whenever you hear, like, this is just like a bit off topic, but whenever you hear some maxis saying that, oh, money is the only thing that's worth decentralizing, no. And I revive old memes. So yeah, at least media, app stores, and social media should be decentralized. And I put App Store there because you may remember the time where the Apple Store banned the Metamask from its store. So basically, it's extremely difficult to use Web3 if Google and Apple can decide what's in your phone or not. And my utopia, what I would like is if even processors, smartphones, and computers, I hope, would become public goods, because computers like these ones, if you don't know, come with backdoors installed by Intel and AMD, which is not nice. The management engine, that's the name, if you want to look it up afterwards. So what can a Wojak do? Just to centralize it, right? When Ethereum came about a while ago, we tried building some social networks, and we get a bonus that open source allows us to make sure that our Google searches or DuckDuckGo searches or whatever app you're seeing is not trying to mess with you. And you have like a guarantee of that. It's just not some, oh, trust me. But if you've been in the space for a while, you know that it's not so simple. Building social media is extremely hard on Web3 still because we lack storage layer. So probably the way to go, it's not going to be just waiting for these solutions to be ready. We had a Swarm launch recently, but it's still not production ready, in my opinion. Or at least it's not been battle tested, to be more correct. But there's a new hope. So this is also from a few weeks ago. We had Stanley from just saying like, oh, if Jack is going to try to build like Aave or Ethereum even on Bitcoin, then Aave should build a Twitter on Ethereum. So my expectation is probably that it's not going to be fully decentralized, but they will need some curation. And we also had Justin Kayland talking about another attempt at building a social media platform called Posta, which is using proof of humanity. So it's not all over, but again, we're going to have to curate those apps. So what were the problems again? What was the source of all the censorship and the bad curation? It's a lack of tripartition of powers. So yeah, Montesquieu is still a Chad. It didn't work so well with decentralized platforms. But we can look at, for example, the App Store. So Apple is the one that writes the policies. It's the judge that tells if an app is following the rules or not. And if they decide that it's wrong, they have the whole power to execute and kick you out. So what can we do? You can use your favorite DAO to write the laws for your social media, for your app store. You can have Ethereum execute, and judge, of course, you should use Kleros. And we don't actually have to wait for Aave to finish. And one thing that gets people mad sometimes is seeing like newspapers and Twitter influencers lying to a large number of people. So we can actually start small. We can try to curate stuff that already exists, in platform that already exists. And soon I will show an attempt at curating tweets. So here we have an influencer saying that Ethereum is like the dollar, it's the same thing. And yeah, people get mad. So here we have a cyberhookie saying, oh, his reputation never falls. What a world. What if we could at least make the reputation of influencer drop a little bit when they bullshit? Yeah, we can curate that today. And just very quickly, I threw together TCR on Curate, which is called Pythia. And basically, if you submit a tweet to this list with a deposit, a $30 deposit, you can accuse someone of some influencer of saying something that there's false information. So for an example, the previous tweet was accused of containing false information. And if the accusation is false, you can go and challenge and defend the tweet to earn the bounty. And I also will encourage you to visit it. So this is the page for the details of that tweet specifically. And you will see like there's a screen capture on the bottom here. There's a link so that you can see the tweet. And it has to be like an influencer, because in case the author deletes the tweet, you're going to need witnesses to make sure that the tweet had the content that the accuser said. And it's running on XDAI, so until rollups are not around, we are using that because Curate can be expensive. And I invite you to play. Just a bit of a warning is that unfortunately Metamask for mobile does not handle XDAI very well in the fees. So you're going to be able to see the evidence, you're going to be able to see the accusations. But if you actually want to start contributing and posting tweets there, you're going to need a desktop until we have like better mobile wallets. And finally, if you do submit, don't worry, you're going to get your $30 back. And if there is some traction to this, we can go further. First, we can set up a DAO with a treasury so that suddenly curating content becomes a public good, and you can get rewarded for making successful accusations. And second, after the list is populated with, say, 300 posts, we can make a ranking of who are crypto Twitter's biggest bullshitters. So it's like a wall of shame that had a due process. So yeah, hopefully that helps a bit with the untruths and the fake news on crypto Twitter. Once that works, we could move on to try and create New York Post and Washington Post and stuff like that. So I'm going to leave you with some space to ask me some questions. If you have questions about proof of humanity or Kleros as well, yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Thanks for the presentation. Quick question on your last example. Who pays for the $30?
Yeah, the submitter. So you have, it's like...
What incentives is there to pay money?
Yeah, so for now, it's just if you're pissed off and it's like philanthropy. So if you're gonna get your money back, it stays locked for 3 days, and if no one challenges, you get the deposit back. But if there is some traction and people start using this just minimally, we could set up a treasury so that if you make a successful contribution, you actually get paid for it. That should make things more interesting.
Hi. My question is, so you mentioned this example of Pompolino's tweet. Now, since this Curate platform is on Ethereum, it's way more likely that someone who's into Ethereum is going to curate this tweet. So isn't there like a very, very strong bias when you're evaluating these tweets?
There is, actually. But my hope is that if, let's say, Pythia had like 1,000 followers, and every time someone posts something, there's like that annoying tweet there, the annoying reply, that maybe Bitcoin maxis will try to defend themselves and they will start using Ethereum, which is amazing. But yeah, unfortunately, I believe that like if this were to gain traction right now, probably the majority of people using this would be Ethereum users which understand the protocol. So technical people that like Ethereum. If you're not technical, you're not going to be able to figure out that a tweet has false information in the first place. So yeah, there's plenty of bias. Yeah.
How would you, so the idea behind kind of migrating toward this Web3 world where, you know, users now are more in control of their data and how they use it and how it's, you know, exchanged across that ecosystem, how do you recommend people kind of start migrating toward that model, like getting off of Web 2 platforms or deactivating accounts, stuff like that, to kind of, because they're already basically, you know, we're already being exchanged behind the scenes, so it's...
So this is actually something that has been happening for a while now, and I think it's a good thing that there is like censorship, explicit censorship, because it motivates people to move away from traditional platforms. So I don't use alternative social media like Gab and things like that because I don't like it. But I think one of the ways that you can onboard people who are not from Web 2 is just with economic incentives. So the most recent example is Axie Infinity, where people who never used the wallet before learn to use it just to play. But before that, we had like proof of humanity with UBI. So in Brazil, I actually live with some programmers, and I was always like, oh, you should try using this exchange, you should try this app, and nobody cared. But once you say, oh, you can actually just start earning money, then they're like, okay, let's set up a wallet and get on board with it. So I think it, like, you don't actually need to do all at once. You don't need to say, oh, I built this network, let's move to it. You can start with like, oh, let's curate what already exists, and you can earn money with that, and the person learns how to use a wallet this way, and then they may look at something else like Aave new social network, and they're like, oh, it's very nice, I don't have to register for this app, I don't have to fill forms, and then they start to see the positive sides of Web3.
Hi, another question. I guess this is more generally about Kleros. Isn't it an issue that when you're a juror and you're evaluating cases, such as, for example, in this curate system, you have to think more about, when you're making a decision, what other people are going to decide on, as opposed to what you think is correct, since that's where your incentives actually lie, right? To agree with the majority.
Yeah, you got it. And actually, this is by design. So when a juror is looking at a case, let's say you're one of 3 jurors, you should not just think about, oh, how the other jurors might judge. You also have to think about what potential future jurors will rule in case there's an appeal. So for an example, let's say that Kleros uses randomness to select the jurors, but let's say that for some random chance you get to talk to some juror and try to bribe them, or maybe the juror is not so good, but whatever is the reason, they will give the wrong answer. When they do that, the party that lost the case will appeal, and the new round of jurors will invert the ruling. And when that happens, the incorrect rulings will get slashed. So if you're, we call that the lone voice of reason. If you're just one juror, voting correctly, you will be rewarded. Yeah, basically, yeah. This is the Schelling point, by the way. It's supposed to be you think where, how other people will vote, and that tends to be, on average, the correct answer. Yeah.
Any more questions?
You can also, there's a Kleros team here. We have our mathematician. Yeah, I think William is probably the best to answer Kleros' question. Yeah. Okay, so I guess that's a no. So thanks again for coming, and yeah.
Thanks.